We can also think about application in supply chain, for example, where artificial integrity systems will prioritize suppliers who meet ethical labor standards and environmental sustainability criteria, even if they are not the lowest cost option, and conducting evaluation and sourcing decision and tracking these outcomes to assess long-term over short-term sustainability impact.
Hi, are you interested in AI and would like to know how to apply it in business? I'm Gosia, and as the host of the AI at Scale podcast by Schneider Electric, I invite AI practitioners and experts to share their experiences, challenges, and AI success stories. Our podcast features real AI solutions and innovations. Welcome back. This is Schneider Electric AI at Scale podcast. My name is Gosia Górska, and today we are discussing the concept of AI integrity and how to build systems that not only deliver results, but also stay aligned with our values. Let's welcome Hamilton Mann, a tech executive, group vice president in charge of digital and AI transformation, encompassing strategy, marketing, and sales across defense, aerospace, and cyber at Thales. And of course, a best-selling author. Welcome, Hamilton.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
So to introduce you properly, I wanted also to highlight that you are actually lecturing at INSEAD and HEC Paris. You conduct a doctoral research in AI at École des Ponts de Chaussée, and you are also a senior fellow at the Rethink Center of the École des Ponts Business School and a mentor at the MIT Priscilla King Gray Center. You are also the originator of the concept of artificial integrity. That is a paradigm-shifting framework that redefines AI system design to build integrity-driven over intelligence-led machines. And you are obviously an author of the best-selling book, Artificial Integrity, published by Wiley. So jumping right away to my first question, I would like to expand, what do you mean by artificial integrity? Why this concept is critical in today's AI landscape?
Yes, so thank you for this great question, because this is the very first time that I have that question. No, I'm joking.
I can imagine.
I usually start, let's say, answering that question by quoting Warren Buffett, right? And Warren Buffett famously said, in looking for people to hire, you really want to look at three qualities: integrity, intelligence, and energy. And if they don't have the first, the other two may kill you. And I think this principle is very much equally applies to many of those AI systems we use, whether it is for running our businesses or to make our living, because even though they are not human, those AI systems, they absolutely have intelligence and they do have energy, right? Mm-hmm. So the question is, how do we ensure that those AI systems we hire, right, in a way as participants in societies, in our many organizations, no matter, let's say, the settings, public, private, and so on and so forth, non-for-profit. How do we ensure that those systems are capable of something akin to what we call integrity? And so from the research that I'm conducting, right, I've come to a kind of let's say, a few conclusions, but definitely the difference between those systems that does not demonstrate this quality of integrity and the other is quite simple in a way. The former are designed because we could, and the latter are designed because we should, right? This is quite very much the difference. So artificial integrity is just that. It is about advancing AI development so that AI systems could be capable of mimicking integrity over intelligence, to exhibit ethical, moral, and social reasoning. And let's say that ethical AI framework, I think it is first to say that they are often designed as external governance or oversight layers, rather than integrating ethical reasoning capacities within the AI system themselves. So artificial integrity is very much about ingraining the very capability of AI systems to be guided by inherent mechanism and framework that ensures consistently integrity-driven functioning in alignment with the human values, right? So I think this is very also, let's say, concerning because, you've seen maybe so far that current frontier AI models, as we call it, very much emphasize expanding technical capabilities in pursuit of high performance on benchmark tests. And doing so, they often do that at the expense of human-centered consideration, right? And it is at the point that, in fact, these models are not crash tested actually against benchmarks that evaluate their intrinsic integrity-led functioning. And for a simple reason, because those type of benchmark is not quite very much existing so far. Or if there is some kind of a few initiative, there has not been taking place at a kind of a momentum that can be a kind of a standard nowadays. So artificial integrity is very much founded on that vision that very much the next frontier of AI lies not in developing increasingly sophisticated or powerful models, but very much in embedding integrity at the core of their design. So it is about ensuring that we can develop AI systems acting in ways to uphold trust, reflect, as I was saying, societal values, and very much contribute to, let's say, a kind of a constructive way of living as a human communities, because they will be capable of, as close as possible, I would say, demonstrating integrity-led behavior by design.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and it's really a fascinating topic because at first you are touching on something that is preoccupying so many people, that AI will not be connected with the human values. This is first. And secondly, it's also fascinating because we hear so much about building guardrails around these AI systems. But exactly, you are asking the question, what if we build AI in a different way? So it demonstrates not only this high intelligence, but also integrity. So my next question would be, how does the system look like when it demonstrates integrity and intelligence? Could you share a real world example or a scenario?
Yeah. So first, I need to disclaim the fact that this is, I think, very much an area of research. And so we still have to learn. We still have to, let's say, build such a kind of a systems to grow in a maturity that will help us or make us able to claim, oh, now we are reaching a point where we have system able of artificial integrity. So this is going to be a journey, maybe the same kind of a journey that we have been living from the very early days of AI to the days that we are living today. But I can tell that even though we are at the very beginning of that journey, there is some kind of indication that can help us to envision what is going to be those artificial integrity systems. And let's take, for example, the recruitment, right? Those type of AI tool that we can use for recruiting people. If we look at the way a kind of artificial integrity systems for such a kind of a use case could work, we could expect that they will be very much proactively addressing the potential biases and evaluate the fairness of their outcomes, right? And making or helping to make fair hiring recommendation and decision. So this is, one thing that will be very much at stake and at the heart, right, of our processes, because it have a very, let's say, butterfly impact in societies. In the case of insurance claim, for example, artificial integrity systems will be consider the fairness, for example, of its risk assessment, right? Treating clients equitably with analysis of claims, outcomes to refine future assessments, for example. Because here again, you are very much in the sectors that really have a large and wide impact in societies. So integrity is very much key, right? We can also think about, application in supply chain, for example, where artificial integrity systems will prioritize suppliers who meet ethical labor standards and environmental sustainability criteria, even if they are not the lowest cost option, I would say, in conducting evaluation and sourcing decision and tracking as well these outcomes to assess long-term over short-term sustainability impact, right? And I mean, in many ways, we very much are in a kind of a situation and moment where we do have very critical sectors where integrity in AI systems is key because it is life altering if we are not integrating those systems. It also makes me think, for example, to a case that is increasingly and intimately pervasive in our daily lives, because it is very much an area that concerns all of us as well, which is the content moderation and recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
We are living in that social network era, and we all know now that, in those different social networks, you do have AI, right, at play. Since a long time ago, before, let's say, any kind of AI chatbot. And artificial integrity in such a systems will be very much helping prioritize user safety over engagement metrics, which is kind of a trap that we see today, right?
Mm.
And they will preemptively, in a way, filter content that could be harmful or misleading, continually learning from flagged or removed content to improve their ethical filtering and prioritizing the consumer wellness and well-being in a way, because, what is at stake there is very much about how to avoid algorithmic techniques that manipulate the brain reward systems, right? Especially when you look at the different audiences that are vulnerable. I'm thinking
Mm-hmm.
about children, for example. So all of this is some of the illustration where you can see artificial integrity systems making kind of a direction and the kind of a progress that we need when it comes to envisioning AI systems in societies. And this is also an illustration that intelligence alone, which means without being guided by ethical, moral, or social framework, can easily stray off course, risking harm and, of course, risking unintended consequences, right? And this is absolutely what we want to avoid. So, bottom line, to cope with this, this is quite the reason why integrity within AI systems should be a must and should be a kind of an area of improvement on which we need to continue to invest. Because, we know for sure that intelligence is absolutely not a sufficient condition for answering or guaranteeing good in societies.
Yes, I definitely see the need for artificial integrity. I can imagine it's possible and how it could work. But then let's talk about the motivation or the things that need to happen to make it possible. So, what actions could be envisioned to set AI development on this path, on the path towards integrity alignment?
Thank you for that questions, because it touched, let's say, the kind of a hard point of my current research. There is many aspects, right, that touch the topic of integrity within AI systems. And I would say this is a very interdisciplinary topic in a way. But let's maybe deep dive on one point specifically. During my research, there is very much one essential element that comes out as a kind of a critical priorities in a way, which is about building AI models considering the data process in a kind of a certain way. So first, beyond labeling the data, which generally refers to the process of identifying and assigning a predefined category to a piece of data, I think it is necessary to adopt the practice of annotating the data set in a kind of a systematic manner. And why the labeling data give it a kind of a form of identification so that the system can recognize it. The process of annotating is kind of let's say, go a bit further, because it allows for the addition of more details and extensive information than simple labeling cannot allow to add. And the data annotations give the data a form of abstract meaning, right? So that the systems can somehow contextualize the information. So including annotations that very much characterize a kind of a integrity code, reflecting values, integral judgments regarding these values, principles underlying them, or outcomes to be considered inappropriate relative to a given value model. It is a kind of a promising approach to train AI, not only to be intelligent, but also to be capable of producing results guided by integrity to a given value model. And for example, in a dataset used to train an AI customer service chatbot, annotations process could include evaluation on integrity with respect to the value model referenced, ensuring that the chatbot's response will be based on fairness, for example. And training data could also include annotation about ethical decision-making in critical scenarios, or ensure data is used ethically, respecting privacy and consent. And so those kind of things can be one of the pieces, right, to explore when it comes to, let's say, ingraining integrity within AI systems. Maybe another essential element when it comes to the artificial integrity building is, let's say, making the AI model capable of displaying features that is very much, let's say, construct based and made possible through the training methods, right? The AI trained using, for example, supervised learning techniques that allow the model to learn not only to perform a task, but also to recognize integrity late and prefer outcomes is also, I think, a promising path for the development of artificial integrity. It is also conceivable to add information about the value model used to train a given AI model through that annotation again, and then use supervised learning to help the AI model understand what does and does not fit the value model, right? So for example, regarding AI models that can be used to create deepfakes, the ability to help the system understand that certain use indicate deepfaking and do not match the value models, right? Will be demonstrating artificial integrity at play, right? In a way. And a complementary approach to that is, for me, the design systems where human feedback is very much integrated directly into the AI model learning process through what we call the reinforcement learning methods. This could involve humans reviewing, adjusting the AI's decisions, for example, effectively training the AI model on more nuanced aspects of human values that are, let's say, very kind of difficult to capture with data and annotation alone, right? And so especially when it comes to foundational AI models, by definition, they are used in many countries all around the world. Users across different countries should have the opportunities to express their feedback on whether the model aligns with their values. So the systems can very much continue to learn how to adapt to different value models that will impact in a way. So, of course, there is measure, let's say, difficulties and pitfalls because there is a kind of, let's say, element of subjectivity when it comes to values. And also, you need to consider different cultures, communities, and individuals when it comes to that definition of values that may varies, of course, in terms of perspective. So this is, of course, something that makes the point quite complex in that. But it also reinforces the fact that the path toward artificial integrity systems also is a kind of an invitation to a more, let's say, open ways of building AI models. Opens in the sense, at least, of having the participation of the users that are directly impacted by the systems at the end, right? So I think finally, maybe the points that can be also, let's say, mentioned about this is that developing artificial integrity systems is very much requiring what I was explaining earlier, which is the interdisciplinary collaboration, right? And to me, this is not something to be taken as an option. This is not something to be taken as a nice to have or not to be, let's say, taken also as a kind of afterthought. This is very much something that needs to be very much at the beginning. So the AI models and the way we train it and the way we design it and the way, let's say, participant and stakeholder that are plans to be the users are involved is very well thought in the very beginning throughout the process of building that AI models. This is quite not, let's say, the norms nowadays in the way we build those systems, but I think this is a kind of a promising path in, let's say, building integrity within those systems.
Yes, I agree. And we already discussed it in previous episodes that AI really requires a larger and higher involvement of audiences, of the end users who are using the systems, because this is affecting them in a way that is different to compare with any other systems that we were using before, any other technology. And as you mentioned about this cooperation between people, so end users and the system, it brings us to the concept of human AI co-intelligence that you also explain in your book. So could you walk us through each stage and explain how these 4 different stages of human AI co-intelligence, how they reflect the changing dynamics between humans and AI?
Yeah, I think in the kind of a framing of a conceptual framework, which is also at the heart of my current research, I've been defining, let's say, that kind of ways we should envision the functioning of AI systems from a kind of a AI and human intelligence collaboration. And long story short, I think there is 4 modes that are very important to take into account, very critical in the way we, let's say, can envision collaboration with AI systems at scale, that are very much, let's say, setting the equation relative to human intelligence and AI intelligence at different degree in a way of, let's say, the need of those intelligence. And let me break it down. The first mode is what I call the marginal mode. And the marginal mode is the mode where you don't need that much AI to achieve your task. And you don't need that much human intelligence either. And on that mode, what is critical is very much to have the appropriate functioning of, let's say, any AI systems if it exists, so that it doesn't create any burden over things, over, let's say, outcomes or delivery that we don't need. And I would say, even further, making sure that we don't put AI where we don't need at all. But at the same time, in that very same, let's say, space, we also have a kind of a very critical questions when it comes to making sure that we are driving the right way, let's say, human communities and human societies as a whole, which is very much about how do we deal with transitions where we see at a very moment that some of the tasks, some of the processes, or some of, let's say, the job that we are doing are very much living their very last days, weeks, years of existence, right? Which means that any form of a work that we are experiencing do have a kind of a expiration date. And so let's not be, let's say, naive, thinking that anything is living in a fixed pie, and making the work of reflecting about the transitions. Transitions means that the work may evolve. Transitions means that the work may be useless. Transitions mean that the work needs to be reshaped. It means many things, but it also means that we need to, let's say, anticipate that adaptation. So this is very much where the marginal mode is living. And the AI human collaboration in that mode set very, let's say, specific questions toward, let's say, the way we should collaborate and the way we need to envision the collaboration. And it starts also by the fact of acknowledging that sometimes we don't need such a collaboration. And if we don't need it, we need to, let's say, pay attention of not making a kind of a race for AI just for the sake of AI, because it is not something that will be, let's say, generating value at the end. The second mode is very much about what I'm calling AI first. And AI first is basically where you very much need AI, you very much need artificial intelligence that very much precede human intelligence for achieving a given task, for achieving a given goals, because AI is, let's say, a kind of a unbeatable way, right, to reach a certain point of performance, and human intelligence will not be able to help you to reach that. Okay. So in that AI first, let's say, space, the collaboration is very much about how do we acknowledge the precedent that AI takes to human intelligence? What does it mean in terms of, let's say, guardrails, controls, mechanisms that need to be in place in such a systems that, behave and function in that space, AI first? Because of course, one, and there is even more, but one critical aspect on that is that we are very much in the area where systems are operating with the highest autonomy. Okay. And also, of course, in some aspect, behaving and generating and, let's say, having some mechanisms that generate some decisions in a way to let's say, execute some of the action and the functionings that surpass or cognitive capability, right? So the AI first mode is also a specific area where the collaboration with the human intelligence raise new form of questions, but also new forms of, let's say, responsibilities, and new form of, let's say, if not new, actually, reinforce aspect in terms of design and in terms of integrity, of course, of those systems, because again, they are at the age of the autonomous decision making. The third mode is what I'm calling human first. And the human first, a bit by opposition to the AI first, is, let's say, where you need to have human intelligence that surpass AI. This is very much starting by acknowledging the fact that in some aspects, and many actually, you will not be replacing the human intelligence with AI. So it means that in that area, and it may concern many tasks, many jobs, many things that we are doing in life, right? In that area, this is very much critical also to think about the mechanisms that will be fostering and not undermining human intelligence over AI, because this is crucial that we are very much using at its full pledge, or using at its very natural aspect, or very own human intelligence to do what needs to be done in that space. And I'm thinking, for example, about, the skills of empathy, for example, that, being are very much able to have. And that even though some, it's a AI chatbot can mimic, you will not replace the eyes, the touch, the feelings, the sentiment that you have in front of you of people, of someone that care about you, right? So the human first is also calling for a specific and scrutiny, let's say, ways and aspect of designing and developing and envisioning the collaboration with AI in any setting and any organizations, because it is very much for all of us, in a way, an invitation also to not falling in the trap of, the buzzwords of AI, and put at the centers, right, what makes us human, right? And the last mode is what I'm calling the fusion mode. And the fusion mode is the fusion of human intelligence and AI. So this is very much where we will need, let's say, the best of both worlds, let's put it this way, in a form of a hybridation to achieve certain goals and certain tasks. And so usually when I'm talking about the fusion modes, it rings the bells to the mind of people saying, this is, for example, what Elon Musk is doing with Neuralink and those things. And yes, this is such a kind of aspect, right? We are very much about, that sphere where the hybridation can goes at that, let's say, level, right? And it, of course, touch a lot of questions, not to mention the question about the anthropological question that it touch, right, in a way. But even though we are not looking that far, it is quite needed for fighting some of those diseases, right, that we, let's say, don't know how to fight today, right? We can imagine having systems that are, let's say, microscopic and living in our, let's say, organisms to help our antibodies fight some specific diseases that we know today is that we are not very well equipped to fight against that. And we can also, let's say, imagine all the progress that we can make when it comes to the bionic type of replacement of some of the, part of our bodies where, let's say, it happens to anyone having an accident, etc. of life, losing my legs, losing my arm or whatsoever, and still being able to continue to live with some kind of a intelligence bionic, so-called artificial organisms, right? So the fusion mode is also a specific, let's say, space, very interesting to explore when it comes to the AI systems and machine collaborating with human intelligence. And those four modes, and this is where, let's say, the landscape of possibilities explode in a way, depending on the way we collaborate and the way we need to collaborate, will be, let's say, transitioning from one mode to another, depending on what we need to achieve, depending on, let's say, what is, let's say, the circumstances, and so on and so forth. And to me, this is also a very key aspect of artificial integrity, which is about having that kind of ethical, moral, and social intelligence ingraining in that AI systems, not only to consider those 4 modes, but also to be able to transition from one mode to another, considering the very specific collaboration that is at play from the user perspective and from the human perspective. And at each time of the process and the functioning, being very much well aligned with human values, with ethical norms, and with all of those aspects that, let's say, foster integrity-led functioning in the systems.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's really fascinating. And I enjoy so much this conversation. I think this is really thought-provoking, and I'm sure that our audience is now ready to go and read more in your book to discover the full concept. So thank you, Hamilton, so much for this conversation. If there is like one last message that you would like to share with our audience, with people who are looking into developing, into applying AI, what would it be?
One last point I will say is that, we need to continue to invest, of course, not only on AI, but most importantly on our human intelligence. I think this is not making the headlines nowadays compared to AI, but this is critical. So we need to continue to invest in our human intelligence, because in that era of artificial intelligence and human intelligence collaboration that we was talking about, there is also a trap on which we, of course, do not want to fall, which is about mistaking, misinterpretation coming from the AI generated outcomes, mistaking misinterpretation for mastery, right? And so we've seen that AI systems is not, immune to error. We sometimes call that hallucination. And human intelligence is very much our best gauge rules, right? To make sure that we are not falling in that trap of mistaking misinformation and even more misinterpretation for mastery.
So I'm really looking forward to hearing more about the research, about the next steps. And I'm sure that we will meet again to follow up on this conversation. So thank you so much for your time, Hamilton. It was a pleasure to speak with you today.
Thank you so much, Gozia. It was my pleasure to be there. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us today on AI at Scale podcast. Be sure to visit our se.com/AI website and learn more about our AI at Scale solutions. Head over to our Schneider blog platform to read more. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on your preferred platform and share it with your network. Thank you for listening and stay tuned for the next episode.